I posted a video a little while ago talking about superpowers and helping you to understand these kingdoms in the Bible and what's being fulfilled right now. One of the things that I want you to understand is that the Antichrist in Daniel 11 is described as invading the beautiful land. Here's what this means. It is taking over by laying down its own ideas and its ways. People are not going to like this example, but it's the example that God raised to my mind. And, you're going to have to challenge your own beliefs. What I'm about to say has nothing to do with being racist. The two cities that I grew up in, that my father lived in and my mother lived in, were neighboring cities, and both cities were taken over by a particular culture. And before you knew it, I could not read the signs in those cities. English was being eliminated. That's not diversity. I don't have an issue with coexisting. I don't have an issue with everyone having an equal right to live in a town. But that's not what was happening. What they did was essentially invade those towns and lay down their own ideas, their own culture, their own ways, and eliminate the one that existed before, where we were coexisting. That's wrong. That's not right. And what people like to do when they do that is to spin the narrative, and if you say anything about it, then they call you a racist. That's the reason I'm saying something about it, because I'm not going to play that game. It was wrong that they erased the people who were there. It's been wrong when white people did it to every other race, which white people have done it to every other race. And it's wrong when other races do it to white people, okay? I'm not playing the game. I'm mentioning that so that I can help you to understand something. What the Antichrist does is it invades the beautiful land. The beautiful land are God's people. You've been likened to land. And it takes over by laying down its own ideas and ways, and it begins to erase you. It begins to erase truth. It begins to erase the things that God established, to the point that God's people don't have a place anymore. And in fact, they won't be able to buy or sell anymore, and are not even entitled to hold to truth, because it's being spun as some threat to their lives. Do you remember when I told you a year or two ago how the Antichrist, largely depicted in Christian Zionism on the right, here in the United States at least, who were so incensed by left-wing propaganda that they were going to do the same thing but worse, and they wouldn't even be able to see their own hypocrisy? How is it any different for the deranged caricatures who were claiming, I'm a man, I'm a woman, even though they were born in a different body? And we know, we can see that you're not a woman who has an Adam's apple. How is it any different for those people saying things like, you want me to unalive myself because you won't agree with their ideology, than for murderers and thieves claiming to be chosen? That should be even more upsetting to you than trans. That is more deranged than trans. To say that you are chosen by Jesus Christ, but you murder and you steal and you sodomize, but then you justify it by saying that you can do whatever you want to prisoners of war. That there's nothing in that is of Christ. And it should be more upsetting to you and feel more deranged than the things that so-called Christians were so upset about a year or two ago. How is it different for one group to say, you want me to unalive myself, and then this other group claiming to be in Christ, though they don't regard anything that he says, to say that if you don't agree with their blatant evil, their murder, sodomy, theft, that you're calling for the annihilation of their people and you support Hamas and you're a terrorist and you're an anti-Semite? There's no difference in the insanity of that. But I will tell you that there is a difference in the hypocrisy, because one is claiming to receive that from God. One is claiming to be chosen. One is claiming to be doing all of this evil in the name of God. Why is it a prerequisite for speech for you to first state that you condemn what Hamas did? I don't play that game either. You don't want to hear what I have to say, don't listen to me. But I'm not going to say, I condemn what Hamas did on October 7th so that I can continue speaking. I'm not going to play that game. There's a gag order on what you can say or believe. That's why That's a prerequisite. And this ideology is being required in order for you to have a place or freedom or a right to speak. And in requiring it, you're being coerced into accepting that ideology in your heart. And if you're afraid to say the things that I say, which are true, because you're afraid you're going to be called a racist, an anti-Semite, a terrorist, how are you going to make it? What is the example I set for you? Am I playing the game? No, sorry, Antichrist, you're not going to invade this beautiful land. I'm not drinking the Kool-Aid. I am not playing that game. But the reason they've been allowed to play this game is because there are not very many courageous Christians out there willing to say the things that I'm saying. And guess what? You don't get to be the lazy, wicked, afraid, scared, so-called Christian, because that ain't Christian. Jesus didn't do that. The apostles didn't do that. Every early Christian did what they did, even unto death. And you will too, if you're going to make it. And if you understand that, then you're not going to be afraid, because the worst thing that could happen to you is going to happen to you. So let God be glorified and be used for that to happen. If you look around, it shouldn't be confusing to you as to how the Antichrist or the image of the Antichrist has invaded the beautiful land. Through legislation, at least here where I live, legislation has gone into effect, and so has Europe. I mean, this is a major problem in Europe. In some ways, even worse, because here we supposedly have the Constitution, although I don't know what Constitution we have left here. But in Europe, free speech that's not a given. So legislation has gone into effect, claiming that if you speak in a particular way, you're an anti-Semite and a terrorist. Funding is being revoked if you speak outside of their agenda. Politicians are purchased by their lobbying groups. Our military is indoctrinated with Christian Zionism, and we pay for all of this. Here in the United States, the taxpayer pays for all of it. Anyone who won't drink the Kool-Aid, the doctrine, is labeled a terrorist or an anti-Semite and therefore has no rights. And it's going to get worse. And you should be able to see that it's getting worse. And you're going to have to decide. Are you going to be afraid of this? Because if you are terrified by them, then that's what you're going to obey. But if you actually fear God, then you already know that you're not to fear those who kill the body, but to fear the one who, after the body is killed, can kill your soul in hell. What are you more afraid of? No one can do anything to you that God has not ordained. If you really believe that, you'll be able to say what you need to say, what you're required to say. That's the reason I'm not afraid. No one is going to do anything to me that God has not ordained. And if I know that, then He's where my focus is going to be. This is coming very quickly. Very quickly, this power is going to rise, and I will no longer be here. But you will, and you're going to have some decisions to make. And in fact, if you have the eyes to see, you should be able to see it already rising. And you should understand exactly what it is. You shouldn't be sitting there scratching your head with the rest of the pagans, wondering, what's going on here? The Bible already told you what's going on. I've already told you what the image of the Antichrist is, and you need to discern the things I say.